The ability to distinguish between real property, real estate, and personal property is one of the largest challenges you may have as a fresh agent in the marketplace. We're going to go ahead and take a look at a video, and we're going to see some description of really what is real property and goes along with the sale, and what is personal property. It needs to be identified as personal property and may be excluded from a sale of real estate. Let's take a look at the video.
One of the tests for intent for whether or not something is a fixture is how it's attached, attachment. For example, this refrigerator. Now this refrigerator is just plugged in. It is not built in, it's freestanding. So I could just pull it out and take it with me when I go. A big difference is this microwave. This microwave is firmly attached. It's bolted to the back wall, it's bolted to this shelving unit. This is clearly built in. So this is attached, this is not attached. The refrigerator's personal property, and this built-in microwave, of course, would be a fixture. Let's go take a look at another fixture. Another great example of a fixture we find here in the living room, and it is this fireplace mantle. This fireplace mantle is firmly attached to the wall. It's not going anywhere. So its method of attachment would make it a fixture. But look above the fireplace mantle to this mirror. Is this mirror personal property or a fixture? Well, that depends on the method of attachment, the permanence of the method. And if you were to look behind it, you would see it's just a wire hanging by two nails. So it's only hanging onto the wall. I could lift it off easily and take it with me when I go. So the mirror would be an example of personal property, and then this fireplace mantle would be an example of a fixture. One last example of a fixture I want to show you is this ceiling fan. Now, the ceiling fan is clearly attached to the property, but it began its life as personal property. The homeowner went to a home improvement store, picked out the ceiling fan, and brought it home in a box. And that whole time, it was personal property. But then once the homeowner attached it to the improvement, it became a fixture. It's attached to the improvement, which is attached to the land. And of course, how do we transfer land or real property? With a deed. But what if the homeowner wanted to take that ceiling fan with them when they sold their property? Could the seller just take the ceiling fan off the ceiling and take it with them when they go? No, they could not. They would actually have to exclude that fixture in the purchase agreement, specifically say they were going to take it with them. If they did not exclude the fixture and they took it with them, that seller would be in breach of contract. So in review, when we sell real property with fixtures, those fixtures transfer with a deed and need to be excluded from the purchase agreement. Now, if we want to include personal property, we would include the personal property in that purchase agreement. All right, so now that you understand what is and is not a fixture, my colleague Rolf is going to talk to you about a different kind of fixture, trade fixtures.
Thanks, Erin. I'm here in one of our Kaplan classrooms to show you some examples of trade fixtures. Now remember, trade fixtures are tenant-installed additions that are used in the tenant's trade or business. Now normally, if a tenant installs fixtures, like in an apartment building, those fixtures would become the property of the landlord. But trade fixtures can be removed by the tenant prior to the lease expiration. If they're not removed by the tenant prior to the lease expiration, then trade fixtures would become the property of the landlord. So you can see here we've got a screen for our PowerPoint projections. We've got a credenza back here that's attached to the wall. This podium is attached to the floor. It's got wiring and computer cables and stuff. And over here, we've got a whiteboard that we use in the classroom for writing on. Now again, these are trade fixtures. Now normally, fixtures would transfer with the deed. They're attached to the real estate. But because these are trade fixtures, they do not necessarily run with the land. In fact, if we were to sell this facility, if we were an owner and we were going to sell this facility, we would transfer ownership of the trade fixtures with a bill of sale, treating them like personal property.
So the question of what is real property, real estate, right? And what is personal property? That question comes into play every single real estate transaction. And you've got to know the difference. You've got to know what runs with the land and what's going to be removed. If you're representing a buyer or a seller, It makes a big difference. There's one more thing we should cover that we didn't see in the latest video, and that is there's another exception. If any of you are thinking of selling farmland, so if you're thinking of selling land that is producing an agricultural crop, right, Fructus industrialis, there's one more exception to the rule of fixtures and real property and personal property. And that is, well, let me back up a second. So we know in real estate, this is kind of common sense, if I'm selling a piece of land and there's a big tree on it and there's a bunch of bushes on it, the tree and the bushes go with the land, right? They're there, they're expected to be permanent. They're plants, they're a part of it. Well, it's different in agricultural land. When a farmer takes a seed and puts it into the ground, right? Those are emblements. And that seed goes into the ground with the expectation that through the growing season, that seed is going to grow into a crop. And that crop is going to be harvested. Now, it could be a seed or it could be a full-blown orchard, apple orchard, could be oranges, whatever, but there's a crop that's expected, Fructus industrialis, at the end of the growing season. Here's the thing you got to know. That is personal property of the farmer. And when they sell it, for whatever reason they sell, if they sell in the middle of a season or at the beginning of the season, they will have the right to their personal property, which is that crop for that season. So, if you're selling farmland, through the exception of implements, are you going to want to know who owns that crop? Just like every real estate transaction, no matter what the rule is, you can write it in or out of the deal. At any time that you want to have something included or not included, you can write it in or out of the deal in order to protect you and your client. Also, to make it very simple when it comes to closing, the last thing you want to have is an issue over personal property. So if we just review a little bit, think back to the video. When something is attached in such a way that it has this permanence to it, like the microwave in the kitchen from the video, and the mantle and the ceiling fan, we know that if we remove those from a property, they're going to leave holes in the property. They were attached in such a way that when we remove them, it's going to fundamentally change the property. That's the method of annexation. The next rule is the method of adaptability. Has something the intent of being permanent in the property. Got to understand that it may not be attached with a bolt to the wall, but have you ever been in a kitchen where they have one of those big center islands, right? And it's got the butcher block top and everybody stands around it whenever there's a party or something happening and everybody's cutting and food set out. Beautiful center island in the kitchen. But have you ever done it once where you bump into it maybe and it moves a couple inches? You're like, wow, this is like a floating center island. But if you look at it, the cabinetry all matches all the rest of the cabinetry in the kitchen. Well, that was built with the intent of permanently improving that property. That stays too. That's a part of real estate. It wasn't intended to be pulled out and taken with them to the next home. Different when you buy the little cart at IKEA, that has a little butcher block top and the wheels on it, and you move it all over your kitchen. That doesn't have the intent of being permanent. So through adaptability, has it the intent of being permanent and improving that property. Really key that you understand, the rule of fixtures and what is real property and what is personal property, not only for your, real estate licensing exam, but also for a successful career in real estate.